pick a spot in there, but there's no problem there. Yeah, no worries. No worries at all.
No flies on me, mate.
I'll just start short and sharp. Good morning, everybody. What we saw last night here in Caloundra is deeply concerning. It is not good news for the people of Caloundra, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with the community in fighting a youth jail. There was nothing said about this before the election. We know that talks were underway, and yet the public weren't informed of it. To have this rammed down their throat in this manner is deeply concerning. What we saw last night wasn't community consultation. It's a third-term government that believes that it should always get its own way. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Caloundra in fighting this, tooth and nail. And I'll ask Jarrod to outline some of the history of the developments and where we see it going from here.
Thanks, David. Jarrod Bleijie, member for Kawana. Lived on the Sunshine Coast most of my life, and thank you to the opposition leader David Crisafulli for again coming to the Sunshine Coast as we express our concern again for this Caloundra Youth Jail. Look, I'm really getting angry about this, and I'm getting frustrated that the government is not listening to the people of the Sunshine Coast. We don't want a youth jail in our tourist heartland, and that's the Caloundra Kawana area. This road behind us here, people come in here, we're at school holidays, you can see the traffic delay now. These are people coming to Caloundra and the Sunshine Coast because they want to enjoy their school holidays. Now what we've seen with the history of this is the government trying to spin their way out of this. The watch house was operating behind us. Then they closed the watch house down but said, oh well, we're not just proceeding yet with the youth jail, everything's not changed. Well, that was rubbish because we know the police prosecutors already moved out of the watch house. Then the last press conference we did, this sign was taken down. And now we see the signs put back up. So the government are trying to give a sense that nothing is happening yet and they're in this consultation stage. The consultation stage is a furphy and it is a lie. It is a government rouse to look like they're consulting with the people of the Sunshine Coast, but they're not. So we have over 6,000 people now in the Sunshine Coast community that have signed the petition saying no way to this youth jail facility. Every young criminal that's committing the most of the crime on the Sunshine Coast now is not coming from locally. They're actually coming from 1-2 hours away. If this youth jail is here, this remand centre is here behind us, those young offenders will be sleeping in Caloundra. Not in the Brisbane Youth Detention Centre, not at Woodford, not at other jails. They will be here in our local community, and we don't want it. So I say to Anastasia Palaszczuk, the Premier, who I asked a question without notice in Parliament last week, will she listen to the 6,000 people that have signed the petition? And she said, no, they have already done consultation on this. That is a lie. The consultation they're doing on this is nothing more than government ticking a box. We deserve more respect to the people of the Sunshine Coast than what the government is giving us. I'm going to hand over to Dan Purdie, member for Ninderry.
Yeah, thanks, Jarrod. And as Jarrod was saying, the government needs to stop lying to the people of Caloundra. Stop taking our local police as fools and stop building this jail. They need to admit this is a stupid, harebrained idea. They need to sack the person that made it or came up with the idea and start being truthful with people of Caloundra. Last night, as Jarrod said, we saw a charade. This decision has already been made. The police that worked in here have already been moved out. Workmen have already started work on the renovation to turn this watch house into a jail. Leading up to the last election, the local member and the minister stood up and promised our local police and the people of Caloundra a new police station, more police resources and less crime. We now know that at that time they had no intention of building a new police station. They'd already made a decision to remove a viable resource, an imperative resource that police use every day in a watch house, and start transporting more criminals from around the state here to Caloundra. The whole thing has been a sham. The people of Caloundra and our local police are being treated like fools. It's a stupid idea and the government needs to stop building this jail right now. Sorry, I want to introduce Donna. Donna's a local mother, business owner. She's on a couple of boards, one of them being the Chamber of Commerce. Recently joined the board of the Aura Connect. She's very connected across the Caloundra area, and she was at the meeting last night and she's got concerns about it as well. So.
Thanks so much, Dan. Yes, last night I was at the Caloundra Residents Association meeting, and firstly I point out that there was no local member there from the Labour Party putting his case forward. There was no representative there whatsoever. In fact, one of the most common comments across the room of about 40 people were that they were absolutely fuming at the lack of consultation that we as Caloundra residents have had in this process. Every question that was asked was answered and then later was contradicted. I am fuming as a local resident living on Pelican Waters of what this will do for our community. For a government to invest over $16 million into something that they claim will be a short-term centre, and they claim that will only be used as an overflow, how can they justify the funds to put here from our taxpayers' money? And I'm fuming, and I questioned it last night as well as the other people in the room, and you will hear, I believe there's interviews being done with the Sunshine Coast Daily as well of the results that came out. There was not just results of not wanting this. There was an overwhelming anger and result that this does not need to be here, and overwhelming anger that no other location or facility has been looked into, and an overwhelming anger about the fact that we are the only near future youth jail that is located in the CBD, and that is not acceptable. And I want to tell the residents of the entire Sunshine Coast, because it affects everybody, you cannot sit down and allow this to happen. If you don't fight against this now, it will be too late. Thank you.
Any questions? Or, yeah, of course, yeah.
So, general online research, not that there's much being put out there about that. Last night I was actually tipped that was happening, and as soon as I found out, I blasted it across social media to try and get as many people to know about this. I intently listened to their facts on this remand centre, which was not a fact about a remand centre, it was a fact on the help it gives to youth criminals.
We heard from the Labor member, saying that legislative change would actually be required for this facility to become permanent. Were you aware of that?
According to what we were told last night at this meeting, this is a 4-year plan, and a further, I think it was $5.7 million will be invested by state government in order to find a facility that is best suited long term.
What's your background, Donnie? You're a mother of young children in the area?
Yep, I have 2 young children, and I have a local business that services the tourism sector, the domestic sector and the education facilities here on the Sunshine Coast.
What's your major concern about the report of this project going ahead?
I'm concerned many things. First of all, I don't think that they can physically give the care that's needed to these youth criminals that need this sort of facility. I'm concerned about the reputation of a prime tourist location. I mean, Caloundra is known for the beautiful Pumerstone Passage, not a jail facility. I'm concerned about people coming to a Christian school just down the road and kids driving past, looking at a youth jail every single day. And honestly, from a personal perspective, I'm concerned about the value of my properties in Pelican Waters and the general lifestyle of my children moving forward. And I'm also concerned about the fact that the state, the local member here, Jason Hunt, has not been transparent with us. The Labour government, and I'm not a politician, but they have not been transparent with us. And I'm paying taxes to live in this beautiful place I appreciate every single day, and it's being used against the wishes of the community. And they're my primary concerns.
is that it will just house young people who don't get arrested. Right now, it houses both adults and young people. So the only difference is that adults won't be.
I can't speak for that, but
I can answer more questions about that if you like.
yeah. I find it very difficult to believe anything they're telling to us. I mean, last night they stated it's a short-term facility and that no youth will be kept here for more than 30 days. And yet the statistics across every youth remand centre across Australia is 36 days. So how are we going to be any shorter time period?
Meg, do you want me to add value add to that or not? I think I got it. Essentially, we heard last month the police minister give a detailed description of what a watch house does. The police minister gave a detailed explanation of what a watch house does. He explains that it is used to process offenders. Police arrest someone, they process them through the watch house, they take them to court. They come back, they get processed, they get released. A jail, a remand centre is a jail, and a jail holds people long term. They need support, they need services, they need visitation from their family. So the minister went into great detail and explained what a watch house does, and he went in, and that explanation included a watch house is used for processing. This here has been used for processing prisoners for a long time, or offenders, on a short-term basis. Holding adults or youth for 30 days or more is a jail. That's not processing someone, that is detaining someone, that is jailing them. So for anyone to come out now, as police have said to me, anyone who tries to say that a jail and a watch house is the same thing or is used for the same purpose has no idea. They've got rocks in their head, like they are totally different, and the minister explained that at estimates only last month.
Yeah, they have said, and in a release they put it in print as well, that it is a short-term remand centre, and that the legislative change would be required for people to be able to be kept here long-term.
Well, that's the first I've heard about the legislative change. I do question that. And there's no such thing as a short-term remand centre. People are held on remand until they go to court. Like the 17-year-old recidivist offender who mowed down that couple on Australia Day, he will be held on remand until his trial for murder, which could be 12 or 18 months away. I know on average it's 30 or something days collectively for the hundreds of kids that go through our youth detention facilities, but some of them, the more serious ones, on murder, rape, GBH charges, can be held on remand for a year or two waiting trial. So there's no such thing as a short-term remand centre. A remand centre for adults is Arthur Gorrie. This is a youth equivalent of that. It's a remand centre. It's a jail where kids will be held, that the worst recidivist offenders will be held until their trial. So no one can actually say how long that will be. It depends on the court. And we do know, we've seen 18 months ago, youth detention facilities were over capacity. We ended up with 90 kids in watch houses, in the Brisbane City Watch House. That's how over capacity our youth detention facility was at that time. So we know they're already bursting at the seams. Before long, this facility will be full. It's going to house some of the worst offenders from across the state. And I'm telling you now, the government won't be able to make a commitment as to how long that will be, because that's determined by the court and the backlog of the court.
Very stressed and concerned about what's happening right now. But even on understanding if it's a short-term remand centre or if it's people to be held here long-term, they've also said that the young offenders weren't over capacity. Facilities for young offenders weren't filling over, that they were under capacity. So have you got stats there?
Yeah, well look, at the moment, youth detention facilities aren't at capacity, but it's like hospital beds. You know, and you had a hot summer, and they're probably not at capacity at the moment because a third of our police are manning quarantine hotels, are on borders, and they're not actively out arresting some of these recidivist offenders. But that's a story for another time. I can tell you the model is, in every town across Queensland and Australia and probably the world, is a police station, a watch house and a courthouse. Show me anywhere in Australia or Queensland where you have a police station, a youth jail and a courthouse. So the fact of the matter is, I'm an ex-police officer. I worked right here. My colleagues still work here, and I can tell you they are legitimately alarmed about this. They're losing a resource, being a watch house. So try to find anyone in the government that can say, oh, well, that's usual, because it's not. We've had lawyers and people from the court come out publicly and voice their concern. And capacity in a watch, like, look at the history. 18 months ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago, we had 90 children held in the Brisbane City Watch House, a maximum security prison, because youth detention facilities were overloaded. So back then they were at capacity. Well, if you believe the government, they've cracked down on youth crime and they've made it harder for youth to get bail. So the numbers should be going up. And as I said, it's like a day-to-day thing. Capacity, and I think there's, I could probably go through the numbers off the top of my head. I haven't got them now, and I understand. But I remember when I was on the front line in 2016 and 17, we would take offenders down to Brisbane Youth Detention Facility and told it's full, and have to turn around and come back to the coast and let them out. So that was happening in 17. So look, I'm just telling you from first-hand experience on the front line here on the coast, and talking to my colleagues regularly as I do, that losing access to this watch house is a stupid idea, and putting a youth jail in the main street of Caloundra is a stupid idea. And ask the government, point to anywhere else in Australia or Queensland where they have that model, because the model is police station, watch house, courthouse.
Labor also said that they worked with QPS on designing this facility. I respect that you have experience here, but surely they didn't. Do you believe that they just went in and picked it without any consultation with local people?
Well, look, that's a question for the police, and I understand there were police at the forum last night, and this question was asked, and I don't want to answer on behalf of our police, but what I have heard is that the police were told. They were told on the 1st of October, which is about, a week away, that this facility was being handed over from the police to youth justice. Subsequently, the staff that work there, including our police prosecutors, have been moved out. Our police prosecutors are working in an equipment room in the station, and all the equipment's out in the hallway. Like, this is happening. The whole thing's been a sham, and they're trying to come up with new terms about an overflow remand facility. But, like, that doesn't exist. You've got a youth detention facility. If people are held here on remand, well, who knows how long they're going to be here for. And I think I've spoken for way too long. But
sorry, I just do want to. This will be my last, because in terms of this, you're not sure about what legislative change is required. Don't you think that the LNP needs to double check that they can't be held here for a long-term amount of time before you get engaged residents and sort of create fear within the community?
Well, I'm happy to. I could answer that, but I'm happy to throw to Jarrod.
All right. This is the brochure that's just been released from the government about this youth jail. It says in their own brochure, it will accommodate young people while they are waiting for a place in a detention centre. It then goes on to say, but it will be critical plan for additional capacity. The government will be using this as their overflow jail. That's the reality. Because it says it in their own brochure. It says their own brochure, they've got capacity issues right across the state, and they need extra facilities for overflow capacity. Because a year and a half ago, there were stories from the ABC, Four Corners, that exposed the youth in watch houses. So the government said, well, we're not going to hold youth in watch houses anymore, and then they went about it. Now the police minister's saying they have to because of capacity issues. So the reason they've identified this and then bumped the police out is basically it gives them an extra 30 beds, but what will happen is when they spend the $16 million, the Youth Justice Department will go to the Minister and they say, Minister, we've got a huge problem. We're double bunking capacity issues at our youth detention centres. We've got over 30 beds capacity here. We need to transfer this into a proper youth detention centre and put the kids in there. That's what's going to happen. And once they change this from a watch house, as Dan said, watch house, they could be in here overnight. A watch house is someone gets arrested in Bullcock Street, they go to the watch house, and then they might leave the next day. And you're not talking about 30 days or more in watch houses. In their own government documentation, their little glossy brochure that they're trying to convince the residents of the Sunshine Coast how good of an idea this is, it says that they will be transferred between youth detention centres and this centre. So if it's good enough for them to be in the youth detention centre, it's exactly why they're here, because there's no difference. And the words of the Director General, I asked at budget estimates about this youth detention centre, the Director General said, the youth detention centre in Caloundra. Her words. The boss of the department is calling this a youth detention centre.
This guy served his community for a generation, and he's being very polite. So allow me to fill in the holes. It's been his former colleagues who have reached out to us as a cry for help. They are at their wits' end. If the government was so confident about this, why didn't we hear about it before the election? Do you want to know why? Because they know the idea stinks. And if it looks like a jail and it locks like a jail, it's a jail. The end. And I say to the local member, where the bloody hell are you, mate? Because last night you had a room full of people. That was your chance to show a bit of ticker and turn up and explain what was going on. And he didn't. AWOL, missing in action. He goes to Brisbane and he's like a quiet little mouse. He comes here and masquerades around. Sorry, mate, you can't walk both sides of the street. It's a dud decision. Stand up to your community. We're standing up for them. He's missing in action. And if they believed in this, they would have told residents before the election. And I assure you, if they did, he wouldn't be in there in Parliament swanning around today. That is for certain. Questions?
I've got a question for Brisbane.
Yeah.
To do with the Bleijie Hospital.
Yeah.
Metro North is refusing to clarify whether cases prior to 2020 will be included in the Bleijie Hospital review, whether that be by patients ringing the hotline or Dr. Jim Sweeney receiving surgical outcomes and incidents from before 2020. Does this concern you?
It's deeply concerning. And I just say to the government, what have you got to hide? Surely you want to get to the bottom of it. If we've got another doctor death roaming around a Queensland hospital, every patient, every victim deserves the right to get justice. And all I want to see is a proper inquiry, not a hosed down, sanitised, washed out version that only relates to a certain period. I stood there yesterday beside a brave young woman who wouldn't even be picked up by these terms of reference. Does her story not matter? Does the change in her life mean nothing to the government? Do they see it as a political problem rather than a patient problem? Come on. We're better than that. And this inquiry, if we're serious about it, will allow the lens to be put across everything. And we've got to get justice, and we're not going to stop until every patient has their day.
I've just got two follow-on questions. So if they're going to review cases before 2020, should the terms of reference be updated to reflect that?
Yes. I would rather see it in black and white than some mealy-mouthed words. Now, I want to know that every patient matters, and every incident is investigated, and every person gets their opportunity for justice. That's what a proper inquiry looks like. I'm about patience and about getting to the bottom of it, not about politics and image management. And if they are serious about this, it will be a proper inquiry with a broad terms of reference, focusing on a number of years, and it'll be reviewed independently. Not a sanitised version, reviewed independently.
By not clarifying this, could it potentially cause affected patients more stress?
Yeah, and I say to every patient, come forward and tell your story. I say to every doctor, every nurse, every hospital administrator, please speak out. And if the government's not going to listen to you because of a narrow terms of reference, we will, and so will the media. And one way or another, we're going to make sure that every one of these victims has their day for the allegations of botched surgery. Now, if the government is serious about patients, they will join us on this fight and make sure that people have their proper day to have justice. And if somebody is there today and they are a patient and they have suffered in silence, we are listening to you. We want to hear your story, and we're going to make sure that you get justice. Please speak forward.
Awesome. I just have some from Brisbane.
Yeah.
Does the Premier need to commit to a blueprint opening up Queensland so businesses and residents have certainty?
Well, I can tell you what businesses and residents are telling me. They're just over the mixed messages. They're over the constant changes. They're over the scare campaigns. They want hope over fear. They want clear and decisive leadership. Right now, the everyday Queenslander is somewhere between 70 to 90% confused because there are figures that change every time you turn on the TV, every time you read the paper. And I'm not going to fuel those mixed messages. I'm just going to say to people, go and get vaccinated. There is a pathway out of this pandemic, and a bit of leadership at the top would help provide the certainty that's needed, now more than ever.
The Premier says he's waiting for modelling from the Bleijie Institute head of National Cabinet to
Commit to releasing all of the information, lock, stock and barrel. If you trust Queenslanders, you trust that they will absorb the information and make good decisions with it. That's what good, transparent government looks like. Not third-term behaviour where the person in charge knows best. Share the information with people and we will be better for it as a state.
Are you concerned about the positive COVID cases travel to New South Wales now to those areas?
Yeah, of course we are, and I spent considerable time this morning talking to Laura Gerber on the border. Her residents are concerned, her businesses are concerned, the people providing frontline services are concerned. We understand that. What I want from the government is a guarantee that any decision that impacts people, small and family business and their staff, comes with compensation immediately. Right now there are businesses that are making decisions where hours matter. And right now there are businesses that will not survive the next couple of weeks if their government doesn't provide some support. They need to know that the government's got their back. And if decisions are taken for the greater health good, you can't allow small and family business and their staff to always be left carrying the can. That's got to stop. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Donna, thank you very much for coming along.
You're amazing.